Welcome to my nightmare. Okay, so in order to not make a boring video and ramble on and on about nonsense that you probably already know, or you could just pick up by doing Google searches. So here's what I've done so far. I've changed out all the electrolytic capacitors. Okay, every one. They're all in their proper place and the polarity is correct. I put it all back together, threw the tape in, and no sound. So I wiggled every wire there is, and just no matter what, I couldn't get nothing out of it. Now, when I ejected the tape and it went back to regular stereo mode, which with the head unit, I had sound out of that speaker. And I had sound out of both channels with that head unit. Um, just to recap, that's kind of a pun, but just to update, when I changed the belts on this thing and the tires, it worked. Okay. But I decided that I wanted to change out all the electrolytic capacitors because I don't want to have, I want to have like a, you know, no worries kind of deal. Just it put it in the car, it works, and then not have to think about it anymore. Well, somewhere along the lines, something happened, and now I'm not getting nothing. Now I do have to admit this because it's the truth, and I feel like an idiot, but it is what it is. So basically, when I tore into this radio, I didn't have the schematics the very first time. Before I recapped it, let me clarify that. But when I changed the belts and the tires and everything, I didn't have this schematic. I was just doing it as a, whatever adventure kind of thing, I guess. And it worked, but the fast forward wouldn't work. Well, it would work, but it wouldn't work that great, and it was kind of sporadic. So I look down in there and I see this, if it would focus. See that there? That has a tire on it. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that tire's wore out because the other two were dry rotted and wore out. And when I changed those, they worked fine. So I get on, on my email and I email the company that I got these tires from. Of course, they're like, well, we don't know what the heck you're talking about, and blah 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 blah. Long story short, got the tire, put it on. It was constantly running, even when I didn't have it in play mode. So obviously the tire was too big. Took it off. That's I can kiss $7 down the drain. Big deal. So what? So I put the old one back on, and no sound. So now I'm in troubleshoot mode. So um, I've decided to make a video at this stage to show you what it looks like because I kind of dropped the ball and didn't take very good pictures or did it do any video of me recapping it. So now that it's back apart, you have a good look at it. And the board's dirty. I didn't take it. I didn't take every component off to clean the board. Probably will use some, maybe a duster, cans, duster cans, or I don't know. Really, this side of the board, it doesn't matter. There's no traces on it. I mean, if there was junk on there, grit or something maybe, but there's not a very good likelihood that anything's going to arc out. The back side, it's like a single-sided board is what they call it. The traces are on one side, and it's a through-hole design for people that don't know. And that looks like a mess. That's how they designed it. They just used all through. They just used whatever they could find, and the capacitors that they had were axial capacitors that they threw those plastic covers on. Let me dig one out. Let's see. They threw these plastic covers on top to cover up the leads, but you could see that, I mean, it might fit over that one, but so what I did, because most of them weren't gonna work, because the capacitors I bought that are the right value and everything, they're just physically smaller, so I didn't mess with it. And I really went overboard, and I put heat shrink on the leads, and all these leads are negative leads, and the positive lead is in the center going through the hole. I mean, they both go through holes, but really there's no chance of the negative and the positive touching each other. So it was kind of overkill. I really didn't need to do that. Actually, looking at this one, I forgot to do that one. So, but anyways, that's not my problem. That's not what's causing the issue. So basically, I have to go through and test all these components. The proper way to test these components is desolder them and test them on the bench with the multimeter. What I'm going to start doing is testing all the resistors. And what's nice, I'm being sarcastic, but I mean, it is nice that there's a schematic. They point out all the resistors, if you didn't know what a resistor looked like. I mean, duh. But they did map out and number all the resistors, but they didn't give you any values on that. And if they put the values on this, it would have been this piece of paper right here, but very handy. I mean, it is, but still, you have to go to the diagrams. And so, like, for instance, this one right here on the corner, if it'll focus, right there, right next to the 4 microfarad capacitor, 4.7, sorry. Right next to this 4.7 microfarad capacitor is this resistor here. Now you look on the schematic, that's resistor 50. So you have to go to this schematic and find resistor 50, which is right there. It's an 18 ohm resistor. And the proper way to do this is test it out of circuit. I just put it in ohms. I put it on 200 ohms range, and I tested it. I don't know if I'll be able to do this on camera. Probably not. There we go. So it's 18 ohms, and that's what it calls out for on the diagram. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the wrong thing. I'm not going to desolder all the resistors. I'm just going to test them in circuit. And if they're anywhere near what they're supposed to be, like that one was 18 ohms, right on the money, then if all the resistors check out, then I'm going to have to go to checking the transistors. Those I probably will have to desolder. I probably won't be able to get around that. And that's these black doodads right here. Those are the transistors. And those are on here. Let me see if I can point to one, like these here, where it says EBC. For anybody that doesn't know, that's collector, emitter, and base. Those are transistors. So basically, you see where there's an arrow there. So basically, it'll have resistance one way, but it won't have resistance the other way. So if you test the base in the emitter here, it should have resistance because you see how the arrow is. I think I'm right. Yeah, and then if you test the base and the collector, there should be no resistance there. Because this basically, that little arrow there is in essence a diode, and a diode is like a one-way check valve. So that's how you test the transistors. But from my understanding, is the only proper really the proper way to test any component is to desolder it and take it out of circuit and test it. But I'm going to do the wrong thing, and I'm going to test it in circuit and see how that works out for me. And I got to go through, let's see, there's wow, there's like 80 some resistors. So this is going to be a long, tedious job. But it's got to be done. I got to figure out why this isn't playing. It played before, so obviously something went wrong, and I got to figure out what. So I just figured this would be a good opportunity to show what it looks like and what it entails roughly. And yeah, that's it. To get this to this stage, I had to desolder the backside of the DIN connector there, and I got pictures of how the wires go on. Actually, this would be the second time I've taken this apart. Obviously, I guess I already mentioned that. So all these wires here, I already know where they go. They get soldered back on that DIN connector. Um, if it was a newer style radio, it probably would have headers and pins, and I could just disconnect these wires. They probably wouldn't have designed it this way in the first place. I mean, this is kind of hokey how they got this red jumper going from one side of the board to the other. It's like, yeah, that was an afterthought. And, well, let's not redesign the board and make it simpler. Let's just put a jumper wire. They put jumpers all over this friggin' board. It's just, compared to the newer stuff, this is just really a hack job, you know. But unless you want to redesign the circuit board, this is what you got to deal with. And honestly, if I had to go that route, I would go with surface mount, and it would probably be about that big instead of this big. Okay, well, that's it. That's all I got to say on that. And I'm just going to upload this video the way it is, no editing. And I don't know, hopefully somebody gets something out of this. Oh, and one other thing. Another boo-boo. I ordered this thing, and I was like, all right, sweet. You know, soldering station, and it's got a power supply, DC power supply. Yay, I don't have to bring my battery in and all this. It goes up to 30 some volts. Well, only at 2 amps, bud. So, yeah, so I try to power up my radio. It trips it. So guess what? Take care. Bye.